Shaleena, Tony?
Yes.
All right, Shaleena? Yes,
Hello.
it works, it works. Excellent, excellent. Welcome to this episode of Entrepreneurship Matters. Let me set us up before we dive into everything dollars and cents. Right, Tony?
There you go.
All right, there we go. So Entrepreneurship Matters is a weekly series that we've been hosting with a local up-and-coming and an established entrepreneur. What we know is that successful entrepreneurs are not built in a day. It takes undiluted passion, multiple failures, a lot of grit, and a long-term commitment to make it happen. This webinar series was actually conceived by one of our amazing youth, Cameron Moses, who came up with this. She's sits on our Anchor Strategy Workgroup, came up with this concept, and we've been doing it ever since. We're in our 13th week. This is our first time talking about accounting. Everybody before you has talked about accounting as a part of their dream team. So it's really nice to be able to talk about accounting as a profession, but more importantly, you two as amazing entrepreneurs in our community. So let me introduce you, give brief bios for everybody watching. They have bios 3 pages long, but I'm only going to give the high level because we're going to get into a great conversation. So Shaleena Cottrell is the founder and owner of SCN Accounting and Tax Services. She is a certified public accountant in Maryland and Virginia, a member of the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants and certified QuickBooks advisor. She received her bachelor's degree. I know that people watching, local people, so they're going to give you a woo-woo when I say this. She's a Morgan State Bear. She's been in the accounting and auditing field for 10 years and started her accounting firm in 2016, shortly after obtaining her CPA license. Welcome, Shaleena. Tony King is a second generation accountant. King and Associates was actually, I won't tell the story of your father because I want you to tell it because I think it's important for many folks who are thinking about second generation companies to hear your story, which is a powerful one. But Tony has over 30 years of corporate finance and accounting experience. He directs the firm's business advisory and consulting practice and is responsible for all the information technology and management advisory engagement. He also provides CFO, tax compliance, and general accounting service. His corporate experiences include being a controller and vice president of finance for 2 national hospitality firms, associate vice president of finance for the nation's 10th largest insurance brokerage firm, as well as the supervisor of tax and treasury functions for a Big 4 accounting firm. He is affiliated with, I think, every professional organization that might have tax in its name. So I'm not going to read off all of them, but he is also the immediate past chairman of NABA, which is the National Association of Black Accountants Division of Firms, which is a national consortium of minority-owned accounting and consulting firms. Again, welcome to both of you. I want to...
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I only gave a snippet of your bios because I want everybody to be able to ask those questions. Let me say this before we begin. There are people who are logging in on Facebook, so please put them in the chat on Facebook if you have questions. You can also text your questions. So if you're listening on the phone, you can text your chat questions to 22333. So that's 2 2s and 3 3s. And type JHUWL in the message, and we will receive your questions that way. And if you're in Zoom with us, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will get to them during our question and answer period. Just to begin, why don't I start with you, Tony? Can you tell us what inspired you to be an entrepreneur? Shaleena, see, I got your back. You go second. So
okay, thank you.
Well, Alicia, you touched on a little bit in your introduction, but as you mentioned, the current ownership of King and Associates PA, we're second generation because my father, Benjamin L. King Sr., started the firm in 1957. So we're celebrating well over 6 decades of being in business.
That's a huge deal.
Well, thank you.
Yes, quite an accomplishment.
Benny King Sr. Is recognized as the state of Maryland's first African-American CPA in 1957.
Wow.
So he started his business. Actually, the reason he became the first African-American CPA in Maryland is because he was not allowed to take the CPA exam in DC, which was where he grew up. Product of Virginia State University, moved back home, attempted to take the CPA exam in DC, but he could not because no one would hire him. And at that time, you needed experience, certain levels of experience to sit for the CPA exam. So while he was in grad school at American University, one of his professors suggested that, hey, why don't you move a couple of miles across the border, establish residency in Maryland, because Maryland's criteria was a little bit less restrictive than DC. So that's what he did. He moved into his uncle's basement in Seat Pleasant, Maryland, established residency in Maryland, took the CPA exam in Maryland, passed it, and became the very first African-American to be a CPA in the state of Maryland. Now, keep in mind, the industry was already 125 years old in 1957. So it took Maryland and other states decades and decades and decades to allow African-Americans to become certified. So he started his career, started his practice in 1957, opened up his first office in Washington, DC. A few years later, moved the family to Baltimore and opened up the second office in Baltimore.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what inspired me, and I'll just tell you a very funny story, what inspired me to become an entrepreneur is that when I was age 16, I wanted to get my driver's license. I can remember specifically my father dangling his car keys in front of me. And said, okay, you want to get your driver's license? Well, come to my office on Saturday morning and you'll start to work. So I've been doing this since I was 16 years old, which wasn't too long ago, but
No, not too long, not too long. No, not too long.
But that's basically how I got started in the industry.
That's an amazing story.
And he pretty much treated all five of us, his five brothers and sisters. All of us at one point in time had to work for his firm just to get our driver's license.
That's good.
That is a good story. And you know what, I mean, like, you always hear about the first, and to meet someone that got to literally live with one of the first in Maryland, that's a huge accomplishment. And
the first in Maryland. And if my numbers are correct, if I remember, obviously the first in Maryland, but I believe he was also the 42nd in the entire country. The 42nd African-American CPA in the entire country.
Wow.
He spent quite a bit of time at Shaleena's alma mater. He was an adjunct professor at Morgan State University for at least 15, 20 years also. And then he also trained while he was there at Morgan. He trained countless of other African-Americans who were majoring in accounting and helped them become certified public accountants.
Wow. What a rich legacy. Legacy. Shaleena, how about you? What inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
So for me, I mean, so I didn't really have the background of entrepreneurship in my family, but I would say that I started wanting the desire to have entrepreneurship about 6 years ago. So after I finished college at Morgan, got my bachelor's in accounting, I had already kind of planned to do the CPA exam. That was part of my just goals and achievements I wanted to work towards. But right out of college, I got my job as an auditor, and I kind of just got complacent and just went into the work mode, and that was it. And so about 6 years ago, I met my now husband, and we were just kind of like just talking about the future and goals and plans and what we're, aiming to do with our life and how we see our life. And that's when it was like, okay, well, I did have plans to get my license and kind of like figuring out what could I do with it. And I could, go to a big firm and a big four or something and work all these crazy hours. And I just kind of was like, well, what if I just started my own business and, did my accounting and tax on the side, build it up. So that way down the road, when we get to that point where we want to have family and stuff, I would have a little bit more flexibility. And so that was kind of the start of the idea of it. Just kind of wanting to have a stronger work-life balance and just kind of looking at the future of how I wanted the rest of my life to look. So that's kind of what brought it.
No, that is excellent. I mean, so let me have you take us through the steps you went through to start your business.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have a different question for you because you didn't start the business, but I want to talk to you about the steps you went through. What advice you would give for someone to start their business. But Shaleena, how did you step by step? And I told you don't have to do it step by step. I'm going to make it into steps. But how you went about going from an idea and a discussion with your husband to really starting SCN Accounting and Tax Services.
So some of the beginning steps were obviously taking the exam. So I didn't actually start like studying for the exam. It was like 5 years out of college. So that took about a good year and 2-3 months, that process. And anybody that studied for it, it's you don't have a life. You are just in the books focused during that time. And so that's what it was during that. Once I finished that, which was in I believe June of 2016. So over that summer, I was kind of trying to figure out like accounting softwares, because for me, I had went from college straight to auditing for the government. So I didn't really have as much of the accounting, like on the job kind of experience. So I started looking up online about like, what are the main softwares that small businesses use? And of course, QuickBooks was one of the main ones for smaller size, companies or little, startups kind of things. So I went through like QuickBooks certification program to learn their software, get familiar with that, and got certified in that first. And then after that, I was like, well, I need to start getting some experience. So I actually like sent out emails to several different local accounting firms, because I live in Parkville. So I like reached out to different firms in like White Marsh, Parkville area, Towson, and just emailed them telling them that I was a graduate from Morgan. I just got my CPA. I work full time, but I'm willing to do some like, training or even internship, working with them in the evenings or weekends, just to get some experience. And so I did have, a guy who owns his own tax and accounting office, and he was in a situation where he needed some help. And so it was a great fit. And so he had me join him and kind of showed me like some more of the background of accounting, and I helped him with some taxes. And even now, like he's still like a big mentor to me. Like we still work together on different projects, but like he was really the first one to kind of help me and give me that training, that kind of on the job, and like really show me the ropes of how an actual accounting firm operates. And so from there on, it was just me marketing, putting my name out there as much as I could. And the first like tax season, I still had my like home office. So I would meet people at like a Panera or a Starbucks, discuss their taxes. I'd get their forms and I'd go home, prepare them until I actually had a formal office space. So those are kind of the things that I did in the beginning to just get it started and to kind of get into, the accounting and tax business.
Excellent. You, I don't know if you realize you dropped so many nuggets in what you just of your process. First of all, you talked about taking the exam and getting the credential. And so you're in one of those fields like law, like medicine, where you do need to get your credential. Then you built your infrastructure. So you got this software which would allow for you to accomplish that, and really surveyed and researched the marketplace to see what was being utilized by others that would then be able to convert to you. Excellent. I think what probably the biggest gem you said was about this experience you sought out,
Mhm.
which is a huge humble move to
Yeah.
go and survey different accounting firms and
Yeah.
say, I will come and work for you so you can get the experience
Yeah.
just jumping in. So you didn't hang out a shingle without having the experience. Excellent. And then talked about marketing, tax season, and starting small and going big. So you started in Panera and Starbucks, but and then able to move into your own brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think helpful steps for those who are watching to understand the build up to where you are now as a business owner. Excellent. Really remarkable.
Thank
Tony,
you.
how about you? What would you say for someone starting out in the business? And although your father started out in the business, really sometimes when you start in the business, it feels like you're starting out in the business. So what would you say?
Well, that's absolutely true. And I
Yeah.
do want to give a big shout out to Shaleena, because what I heard in her entire discussion, it reminds me of one word, and that's called perseverance.
Yes.
Thank you.
She had to do what she had to do to start
Mhm.
before she, like you said, she did not just hang out a shingle,
Yeah.
say, hey, come get your taxes done here, or let me set up your general ledger system right here. She did the homework, she did the research, she found that there was a need, and she converted into a niche market for her firm right now. So
Yeah.
a big shout out,
Thank
big
you.
shout out to you for that.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in our firm, now my father's been not associated with us for at least 30-35 years now, but when the transition happened between him and the siblings, we were in a new era. It was a new era of technology. Technology did not exist in 1957 when when he first opened up his stores. There was no such things as PCs and Excel spreadsheets and cloud computing, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did over the next 30 something years was to transition an existing business into a business model that would allow the existing firm to grow, to take the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in terms of the marketing and obtaining new clients, even today, 62 years later, the bulk of our clients come from referrals. We do not have a separate marketing budget. We don't have a a director of development on staff, things like that. One thing I'm extremely proud of is that the firm's very first client in 1957 is still a client today in 2020.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It's
That
still
is
the client
amazing.
today in 2020. So that, we just have to make sure that the partners and staff um, always exhibit that that personal service, because
Mm-hmm.
Shaleena and I, we're not selling widgets and making machinery. We're selling services. We're selling
Yes.
ourselves, and that's what leads to tremendous loyalty among the staff and also among the clients.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. I think for you, Tony, you talked about a couple of things. One, recognizing when there is a transition, that it is almost like starting a new business. You talked about exiting one era of how you do business and moving into another.
Mhm.
When the business started, you probably just paper and pen, to a technology stage, which many businesses right now are going through another iteration of themselves, sort of in many ways feeling like they're going through a restart. So that's extremely helpful perspective. And then you talked about the personal service element of your business,
Mhm.
and building longevity in it. Given that your client from 1957 is still with you, demonstrates that you harness that. We're going to get into, I'd like to really have you drill down on that personal element, because many of the businesses on watching are consulting services, are service industries. They're not producing a physical product.
Right.
So I'd like for you to dig deeper into that, but then talking about building brand loyalty. And that's what I heard a great deal about what you said. Why don't we shift to that? are there things that people should be thinking about if they're thinking, someone on here is watching, they're saying, you know what, I'm gonna start a service business, consulting business. I'm gonna give advice to people in a number of different areas. In your line of business, what are some tips for budding entrepreneurs or those who are in the field? I'll start with you, Tony, and then go to Shaleena.
Sure, sure. My first comment is do what you do best. Okay, you have a particular skill set, and consulting is a very broad and general term. So what type of consulting? Are we talking about business process consulting? Are we talking about information technology consulting? Are we talking about human resource consulting? Yeah, you mentioned in part of my responsibilities, I'm in charge of all IT consulting engagements with my firm. I have a master's degree in information systems. So that's where my specialty is. One of my other partners has a master's degree in taxation. Another partner has a master's degree in finance and accounting. So we each have our specialties and our strengths and weaknesses. And I just say this jokingly, I know how to spell the word audit, but I stay away from, as much as possible, the engagements that our firm gets involved in terms of auditing. That's because I know my other partners are specialists in auditing. Likewise, they don't get involved in technology consulting very much. But for the new budding entrepreneur, concentrate on what you do best, and that's my best advice. If you are a generalist, that may be fine, but I think at some point in time, as you start to grow your business and seek and grow your client base, they're going to be looking for specialists. There's a general consultant on every page of the yellow book, yellow pages, but somebody who specializes in ERP, for example, in enterprise resource planning, or somebody who specializes in human resource labor relations. Yeah, you can call yourself an HR specialist, but even within HR, what is it that you do best? What is your passion? What do you have the most interest in? So that would be one of my major comments in terms of someone who is just starting out or who's interested in becoming an entrepreneur and they want to start a service business. And service doesn't mean just consulting. There are many types of service businesses that you could pursue.
No, absolutely. That's a great advice. I was talking to someone yesterday trying to find that consulting business. And I said, when people have a problem, they want to solve that problem. They may have 99, but they want the person who can solve this problem. And so you really do have to specialize. Shaleena, how about you? What would you say to folks who are watching and wondering? And we're already starting to get in questions. So before I let Shaleena answer, you can still text your questions into 22333 and text JHUWL, but you can also, as many of you are doing, put them in Facebook or also put them in the chat. Shaleena, what advice would you give to folks who are, in the service business or trying to enter into that field?
So I guess I'd agree with Tony with what he said. I mean, I think if you're starting any sort of business, that you should have your focus. Make sure that what you're doing is the best option for you on one end, but then also look at the whole picture of what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. Yes, you will be the professional or the expert in whichever consulting you want to do specifically or whatever service you want to provide. But, the entrepreneurship part of it includes so many other pieces. So obviously, research those as well, understand the sales part of it, the marketing part of it, the IT part of it, because that's all about the business as well. And that all plays a role with your success and your services and, kind of that service that you're providing to your clients. So it's just keeping in mind the bigger picture and the bigger part of entrepreneurship than just what you're providing.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%, Shaleena. Absolutely, absolutely. We're not a firm that specializes in taxation or auditing or CFO type services. Our client base is such that although I don't provide a lot of audit services for the firm from a firm's perspective, but if a client calls and says, listen, I need some audit work and I need the following, what's the difference between audited financial statements and reviewed and compiled financial statements?
Yeah.
We are able to provide we call ourselves a full service accounting firm.
Okay.
So, although we have our specialties and our staff members are expected to be just as versed in taxation as they are in auditing and accounting.
Yeah. And that's hard to do too. So that's great.
Extremely. That is extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
So both of y'all flying without
tax.
planes. Both of you are flying without planes in many respects.
Yeah.
So let me segue to that. What has been one of your greatest accomplishments as entrepreneurs? What thing are you most proud of in your business and in your field that you've been able to do? Why don't I start with Shaleena, because Tony's been he's a little older than 16 and been at this a little longer than 16 when he first started. So he probably has more to say, but Shaleena, what would you say is one of your greatest accomplishments thus far?
Greatest accomplishments, I'd probably just say just the growth overall with the business. Just very proud of that. I have, like he was talking about, like referrals and having, return clients. And, that's been the biggest just proud moment for me, is just having my clients like, referring me to all their friends, all their other businesses. I have, from when I first did 2016 tax season, like I have people that have done their taxes last 4 years or so. It makes me feel proud to know that they trust me, they know I'm professional and that they continuously like put their faith in me. And so that makes me feel good. Also, like you mentioned, the fact that I've just purchased my new office space. So
and now congratulations. Tell everybody where you are, where your new office space is.
Oh, I'm on Joppa Road, 3304 East Joppa Road. So it's I wanted something on a main road that was obviously easily accessed and noticeable by everyone. So so that was just another big thing, because I was like, I don't want somewhere permanent, so I don't have to move every year, 2 years. So so those are just a couple of things, just knowing that my clients are happy and they value my service, and that I just have a space to continue to grow in.
So proud. I mean, you make me so proud. I mean, the growth of your company. It really is. It is inspiring. Tony, how about you? What's your greatest accomplishment?
I don't know that there's a single greatest accomplishment, Alicia, but the fact that for the last 6 decades we're still here.
Yeah.
We are the oldest minority-owned CPA firm in the state of Maryland, but by far we are not the largest. But the fact that we have been able to build on the legacy that my dad started 60-something years ago. And, at one point in time, all 5 children were in the field and participated in the firm. Right now, it's myself. In terms of the ownership and partners, it's myself and 2 sisters. The other brothers are either in law and or retired. So, but the fact that we've been able to grow the business well beyond what my dad was doing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. We've taken on delivery of service in an entirely different method. We have taken on a different clientele. So when I say that he started off with small businesses, I mean, he started off with the local gas station and the local grocery store on the corner and the little convenience stores in the hood in Sandtown, Winchester, and up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. So, these small businesses were the backbone at that time, were the backbone of his business. Our businesses now include, multi-million-dollar nonprofit organizations, multi-million-dollar for-profit companies. So we have been able to expand our service level as well as attract different types of clientele. And it's been a challenge. It's definitely been a challenge over the last few decades. Yeah.
And I think
Oh, go ahead, Shaleena.
I was gonna say, I think that's amazing just to know that, especially in these times of, up and downs and years of recessions and all these things that have gone on and just this pandemic that, you guys have been in business like 62 years. That is amazing. So kudos to you guys. I'm so proud.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm Shaleena, I feel like both of us, we sit
I
down here,
know, right? I'm like,
second generation company. I mean, it's the oldest Black accounting firm in Maryland. I mean, it's a significant,
right.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If we ever talk about what about our future challenges, the future
don't worry,
challenge
you
for us
just
is to
took my
turn it.
next question. Did you see my on the show? Why'd you try to take my next?
Oh, sorry about that.
Try to take my job? No. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Now, what are the challenges you see? Go right into that.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would love to see this to turn into a third generation business. So far, I'm betting 0 for 7.
0 for 7 grandchildren?
Although, no, I take that. I do have 2 nephews who recently are college graduates with degrees in accounting, with a master's degree in accounting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've been bitten by the corporate world. So one is on Wall Street in New York. Another one is with a Fortune 500 company out of Houston, Texas. So it's going to be a challenge for us to try to bring them back in, bring that back into public accounting. And both of them spent internships with King and Associates during their college, during their college days. But they have found their market. I mean, again, they're 1 year, 2 years out of college, so nothing is written in stone as yet.
No.
But I would love to see.
Either you move them back or you have more children. One or the other. One or the
other. Excuse me.
But
hey, listen. All is not lost because I do have quite a few grandchildren, so I still have another option.
See, more children.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it in the family, they got to be the heirs,
Right.
So.
Right. Still have options.
Yes. I imagine, you are. I'm trying to think if we've had another second generation business, but I can imagine that is the challenge. You see that in law firms and you see that in other industries and the succession of the business.
Yeah. But not just the other challenges other than just, second generation, third generation, fourth generation. I think a lot of accounting firms, whether you're a big 4 firm or a small firm like Shaleena and Tony, one of the challenges we find is good talent and talent retention. Okay. We do a lot of recruiting at the HBCUs around town. But as a small local or even a regional firm, it's hard to compete with the big 4. The big 4 are paying $10,000, $15,000 signing bonuses. And the degrees haven't even dried yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who are the big 4? What I guess it changes, but who are the big 4?
PwC, Ernst, Deloitte, KPMG. Back in the day, it used to be the big 8. But then all the mergers and consolidations took place. Right. So those are the 4 largest accounting firms in the entire world. And they actively recruit on HBCU campuses, and Shaleena probably can definitely attest to that. And they're looking for good talent, and they're finding good talent in the African-American community.
Yeah.
One thing I will just share with you is the AICPA, which is the trade organization for all CPAs throughout the country. They conducted a study in 1973 because they were interested in diversity. Everybody uses that word diversity and inclusion these days. But in 1973, they conducted a study of African-American CPAs, not just African-American accountants, but how many African-Americans were actually CPAs. And they found then it was less than 1% of all CPAs in the United States were African-Americans.
Wow.
Today, fast forward almost 50 years, the American Institute of CPAs has a membership body of roughly 450,000.
Mhm.
And today, that percentage has not moved one iota. It's still in the neighborhood of 1 to 2% of
Wow.
all CPAs are African American. Now, the numbers are increased, obviously,
The
because
proportion.
1% of 100,000 is a big difference than 1% of 400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there may be 6,000 or 7,000 African American CPAs in the country today,
Yeah.
but it's still only 1 to 2% of all CPAs in the AICPA membership database. So one of the challenges for people like Shaleena and I are to bring more African Americans into the profession, bring them into the profession, get them to the partner level of their firms, and keep them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you, Tony, and it's not a sidebar, but your statements are sort of the same as the legal profession, right? You
Yep.
get the percentages. There are more Black lawyers than ever, but the percentage in the marketplace is relatively the same over time. And every time a recession hits, we slide back a little bit more. But
Absolutely.
your point is
Absolutely.
valid in terms of us thinking through how do we ensure that more people get opportunity, because the talent is there. It is the opportunities that aren't as spread out.
Mhm.
What would you say? What's one of the challenges you face in the industry or in the field, and what are some of the things you're doing to address it?
So for my challenges right now, I think one of my biggest challenges is just the fact that I'm still juggling my full-time job. So that is the biggest factor in, where the business is going, the timing, and there's only so much I can do, from 5 p.m. to 10 o'clock at night or on Saturdays and Sundays. So, that is the biggest problem for me right now, is just trying to really figure out how I can continue to grow with that short amount of time. And especially as the business itself has grown, obviously I've had to hire new people, like Tony mentioned. At least for me, I'm obviously a little bit smaller. So I'm like, that balance of getting a good, reliable, trustworthy, employee, but also being able to pay them the compensation that they'd like. It's hard because I am still growing and I am still kind of dealing with my own business operations and everything like that. So that's the challenge as well. It's just kind of getting to a place to where, I'll be able to manage everything, with the time that I have, which soon I'm planning to make that transition to full-time self-employed. But that's just been the biggest challenge for me, is that it's kind of like I'm still kind of held back a little bit and I can't really push it yet. So once I get past that, I'm sure there'll be more challenges, but that is kind of the biggest one right now.
Shaleena,
Go ahead, Tony.
if I may offer something, Shaleena,
Yeah.
don't discount the teaming and joint venture type concepts.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there was a gentleman who still is like a mentor to you.
Yes.
Any opportunity that you have to team with another firm, and it doesn't have to be the big four. It doesn't have to be one of the big national firms. Reach out to the community, and if there's any type of engagements that you feel that's within your service delivery capabilities, don't hesitate to reach out for teaming arrangements. We've been doing teaming arrangements with other larger firms for 25 years now, and it's perfect.
Look at this. This is one thing that could come out of this. You could, Shaleena, you might have just got your growth plan to say free. Down the road, having this business, the team concept, the joint venture concept, and Shaleena, you're what you just said has been on. We've heard entrepreneur after entrepreneur talk about this. Your growth point of the leap, right? Do you take the leap, or do you, in the steady? So it is. I think Tony just gave a huge idea for thinking through that transition period. which is
Yeah,
a
like I
growth
said,
point. Yep.
it's something that we've been doing for years and years, because I mean we have some fairly large engagements that there was no way that King and Associates could have done it by itself. You
Yeah.
know, we have some large, I mean, extremely large engagements that a 10 or 12 person firm like mine just doesn't have the capability of doing it. So we team up with
Yeah.
larger firms. Some of them big four, other ones are large national firms. So we team
Yep.
up with them, and we take pieces and pieces and pieces of subcontracts. And it's been working perfectly for 20, 25 years now.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I have been in, like I said, I do have my mentor that I do work with. And then just over the course of networking, I have come across other local businesses that maybe they do a little bit of, auditing work, and I don't really do that, but I'm like, well, I might want to be interested in that. So there's definitely ways to, like you said, collaborate and kind of get you're getting experience, but then you're also kind of keeping it within each other. The business is still flowing within each other. So that's definitely something I do consider too.
Perfect opportunity.
I have good news. I just heard that Oprah and oh, make myself laugh. Oprah, Bill Gates, Robert Smith, and Shaleena, because you got Michelle Obama arms. Michelle Obama is also watching as well. And
Wow.
they know, I know, and they're big, it's huge. So what they've asked is, what advice would you give them? The platforms they're on, the influence that they have, both to influence policy and behavior and corporate, and also philanthropy, as well as grant making, support of small businesses. What would you tell them to do to be supportive of more businesses like yours and to help you thrive in the communities we have? I see you chomping at the bit, Tony. I see you. You moved up closer to the screen. That's not, no, don't move back. Don't move back. Come closer to the screen. Tell us your advice. We're going to go to Shaleena. Go ahead.
Opportunity. Let small businesses like ours get a foot in the door, because it is quite possible, not quite possible. It is possible. It is actual that we provide the same services that some of the larger firms provide with the same type of quality.
Yeah.
I belong to an organization called the DOF, Diverse Organization of Firms. This is the nationwide consortium of minority CPA firms that provide services to Fortune 500 companies, to state and local governments, to individuals. And we all get together several times a year. And we network, we collaborate, we get together and see what opportunities are available. We have member firms from New York to Florida, from Florida to San Francisco. All over the country are hundreds of minority CPA firms like Shaleena's and Tony's that provide the same services, some of them to Fortune 500 companies. So for those Fortune 500 companies who think that their only option for accounting, tax, and consulting work is the Big Four, then they are sadly mistaken, because there are minority CPA firms all across the country that provide the exact same services at the same quality level as they're getting from their current Big Four consultants and accounting firms. So my comment to your attendees or to your visitors is opportunity. Give us an opportunity. Give Shaleena the opportunity to prove herself. Give King and Associates the opportunity to prove himself in terms of delivery of services and what you need from a corporate perspective. It doesn't have to be the entire audit. Maybe it's your pension fund. Maybe it's your 401k plan that needs to be audited. Obviously, and we're not talking about having King and Associates audit General Motors. No. Yeah. But there's some work inside General Motors and Ford and Microsoft and et cetera, that minority CPA firms can do, and they can do as subcontractors and or as prime contractors.
Then what would you say to them?
I mean, I would I would just say that, within these communities, there is a lot of talent, and that they should, you know, I would love to see them have systems in place to where when they do need these types of services, that they are, you know, kind of, you know, having those, yeah, you may have the big main companies that you traditionally work with, but invite some smaller local businesses, you know, talk to your staff members. Who are people that they used for their accounting or their tax services? Invite them to be a part of the bidding process, or, you know, whatever your process is for selection, and just give other people opportunity to show that they have the same capabilities, even if they aren't a big name, because there's a lot of talent out there, and it's, you know, you don't really know it unless you actually go seeking for it. So it's just good to keep your eyes and options and ears all open for other people that are willing to do the same job and maybe even do it better. So
Yeah, and one thing, just to piggyback, is that one of the other, it would help if there were more people of color on the boards of these large organizations.
Say that one more time, Tony. I want you to say, move closer to the camera like you did before.
It would help small and minority-owned businesses if there were more people of color on these boards. You look at the makeup of the Fortune 500 board members, and as I mentioned about the participation of Black CPAs in the state of in the entire country, those percentages being around 1 or 2%. I suspect that those percentages on the boards of the Fortune 500 companies for people of color are probably in that same 1 to 2% range. So it would help tremendously to businesses of color that if their board representation represented the people who that company does business with.
yeah.
And that's people of color.
Excellent job. I mean, let me ask. I turned my back because I got so into this conversation. Didn't realize they put like 50 questions in the chat box. So I'm gonna get to all of the questions. There's still time for people to put them. I don't know if we do have more of the questions. Let me ask you this. So how do you, a question we received on Facebook, how do you make more people want to find out about taxes? I know sometimes it's something that people don't really want to talk about. Sometimes tax time feels like the time to go to the dentist. So what can you do to make people more amenable or just more, you know, excited about the taxes? Anything?
Well, if you are a business owner, then there's absolutely no way that you can successfully manage your business without consulting with a tax advisor. And I don't mean just on the week before April 15th. If you are a business owner, you need to stay in touch with your CPA and your tax advisor on a quarterly basis. Because unless the tax rates ever exceed 50%, you know, you're going to pay taxes, but the taxpayer will still come out on top.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
You know, I don't know how you gain interest in taxation, because, you know, nobody really wants to pay taxes, but it's required. But what's the job? The job of Shaleena and I, and firms like ours and other tax preparers, is to minimize your legal obligation to pay those taxes. You need a professional to help you minimize your tax obligation. You don't need Shaleena and I to keep you from paying taxes, because that's almost impossible. Right. But you should utilize the services of a Shaleena or a Tony to help minimize that legal obligation.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like there's, like you said, there's no way that anyone's really going to be excited about tax season. It is what it is. It's required. You just do it.
There's no marketing.
There's no excitement for that. But, you know, like you said, if you work with your accountant throughout the year, then you can at least have plans in place, whether it's putting more into your 401k or making estimated tax payments or putting something into your child's, you know, school fund, something that you can do throughout the year to lower your tax responsibility that will help you. But, you know, vanishing taxes and making them everything zero is just not doable. So there are people that think, oh, well, I want to just, you know, not pay any taxes. And I'm like,
yeah, that's not happening.
That's not happening.
The key word I heard her say, Shaleena say, was basically it means tax planning.
Yes.
Tax planning. And we actually got that in one person said tax planning emphasis, so that when tax time rolls around, there's not as much apprehension.
Yeah.
Let me ask this next question to you, Tony. There's an individual, and I just want to say kudos to you. They own their business and would love for their children to carry it on, but they're not sure if they're interested. What should they be doing to make it attractive to them? So, your father was able to successfully transfer the business over to his children. What advice would you give to her? How did your father maybe make it attractive to you?
Well, I would say a couple of things. One, it depends on the age of the children. Obviously, my 8-year-old granddaughter doesn't know a debit from a credit and would not be in taking over the accounting firm. But if there's somebody, and this is one reason also that while our profession needs to get into the high schools across the country, need to be in the high schools and not just on the college campuses.
Yeah.
But you really have to talk to the child or the potential second generation person or third generation to find out what their interest is. Let them know. And here's when I say that, because although my dad, sort of pushed us, he told us from day one, if you want to be an English teacher, go be an English teacher. All I'm doing is providing the opportunity. And that's all I want you to get out of this. If you learn a debit and a credit and you learn how to do a tax return and prepare audit work papers, that's fine. At the end of the day, if you want to be an English teacher, go to college and major in English. Yeah. All I'm doing for you guys and your brothers and sisters is providing an opportunity. Yeah. So that may be one way that the parent can get the child involved, but also not make it mandatory or suggest that it's mandatory that you are going to take over this business.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me pose this question to you, Shaleena, and I'm also going to pose it to Tony. First of all, people are just gushing, telling you both congratulations and how proud they are of you and how they're rooting for you both. Shaleena, what is this person asked your 5-year goal, but let's maybe have it. What's your vision for your business? And then Tony, you talked a little bit about your vision of the challenge of the succession, but can you talk about the vision for your business? So Shaleena, you start and then Tony.
So for me, I think the vision for our future is obviously making my transition to full-time self-employed. And from there, like Tony seems to be very active in the CPA community and different organizations. I would love to have more time to be more involved in, things like that, go to different webinars, seminars, things like that. So that's definitely something I want to start branching out into. Also, maybe down the road doing maybe like events for like training on, for small businesses on tax returns or what kind of documents to use, or just providing some education to people. So things like that are kind of just things in the timeline of, what could I do to open the revenue stream, add additional kind of sources. Also, eventually I was thinking about maybe doing some sort of review services down the road as well. So that's kind of like where I plan. So as I kind of move from one step to the next, I kind of add a few more steps in there. So those are some things that I've thought about for like the next, 5 or 3 to 5 years, is kind of to start branching out more and just networking more and just being more a part of the accounting community.
Excellent. How about you, Tony?
Well, the current pandemic has caused a lot of businesses, and not just accounting firms, a lot of businesses to rethink how they do business.
Yeah.
We have gone virtual since early March. Part of it's mandatory now, just like Shaleena's practice. The governor did say that accounting firms are considered to be essential businesses, so we never had to shut down.
Yeah.
But for the safety and concern of our employees and as well as the clients, we did shut down the office, with the exception of one or two administrative staff. But we gave our employees the option to work remotely.
Yeah.
Most of them took advantage of that. So now we have to think about, once we come out of this, is doing business remotely just as effective and efficient as sitting behind your desk in your office?
Mhm.
I would like to see the same efficiencies and effectiveness of client service without the necessity of being inside of an office.
Mhm.
Myself, even pre-COVID, I worked 80% of the time remotely anyway. So
Mhm.
it, COVID just didn't do too much in terms of how I deliver my services. But I would love to see our senior staff move up, obtain the certifications, move up, and become partner level ready.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to always be King and Associates.
Yeah.
You know, there could be other partners in the firm other than someone with the last name of King.
Yeah.
We've had that over the years. It has not always been a King that was a partner and owner of the firm, but it's been quite a while since we've had a non-family member as part owner of the ownership of the firm. So I
Yep.
would love to see that down the road. And the other thing I would love to see is some of these subcontracts that we work on, and quite a few of them. I would love for us to be able to become the prime contractor instead of a subcontractor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let me give you a couple. We have so many people talking on Facebook and in Zoom. So let me get to some of these statements. They're not questions, but someone wanted to give advice to grow. Bring one person in full time who you trust. When we started our practice 34 years ago, I came into the business full time while my spouse juggled. Strategic alliance are great as well. We shared research libraries to save money, worked in each other's offices, sent referrals to one another. So that's some advice. Someone commented that glad Tony mentioned the big four recruiting at HBCUs. Now this next part gonna get me in trouble, but it's not gonna get me in trouble because this is the statement of someone on Poll Everywhere. He said, I'm glad you talked about finding great talent at HBCUs. Someone should give Wells Fargo CEO this tip. Someone else talked about,
I saw that article about the Wells Fargo CEO today.
yeah,
I
I
know
know.
exactly what your listener is reading from. Yes.
Yep, yep. Someone else talked about they're juggling a full-time job too. So happy to hear other people do this in the beginning. Keep hustling, Shaleena.
Yes. Thank you.
Someone gave you kudos, Tony, for talking about inviting more. See, that's why I told you, move closer, inviting more people to serve on corporate boards, nonprofit and for-profit enterprises, provide training people such as Dolph, as what Dolph does to create executive training and even board opportunities, encourage AICPA to hire executive level minorities to help attract more support. Excellent. Someone also commented, in most cases, smaller firms provide better quality of services than large firms. And someone said, great discussion, Tony. So proud to be a part of this and had the pleasure of hearing from, they give us a shout out, Shaleena, to hear from us, but huge kudos to Tony. Let me give you this last question and then I'm going to wrap up and I want you to get ready because I'm going to ask you all to give all of your information so that people can get in contact with you, use your services. Shaleena, we're going to have you taking a big leap. We're going to bring you back in like 6 months. You're going to say, I'm rolling by myself. So this one questions, what do you have suggestions you have for those researching and working on plans before making that leap? Are there things that people should be doing before, they take the leap into starting their own business? Tony, Shaleena, what would you say to them?
Research the market,
Yep.
and that market research is applicable no matter what your potential endeavor may be.
Mhm.
On Tuesdays, I'm a volunteer instructor for the Small Business Resource Development Center here in Baltimore, as part of the SBA program.
Oh,
And
James Peterson.
yeah, they have what they call Paul Taylor and Paul Taylor's former
Oh,
organization. But
yep,
they have what
yep.
they call the Smart Start workshops, and they invite a banker, an attorney, an insurance representative, a CPA, and a marketing individual. And anybody who wants to potentially think about starting their business should spend the $35 or $40 registration fee reach out to the Small Business Resource Development Center, and those will be the best 4 hours you have ever received in terms of what you could possibly expect when you stick your toes into the entrepreneurship waters. Even if you're working full-time right now, 9 to 5, but you have an idea, you have a business thought, you have a plan, go to one of those seminars, and that will be the best 4 hours for your $40 or $50 registration fee you've ever spent.
Excellent. Shaleena, any advice for folks?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, definitely if you're working on like a business plan, like your research, figuring out all the different areas, not just, the market, obviously, look into different pricing, comparing, dedication, time needed, software programs you'll need, all these things that will play a role in your profit, your profitability, your margins. And so, just really do the research about everything that surrounds functioning this business, because that's really what's going to help you to be successful, is proper research ahead of time of what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, what you're going to need to get you to that next level.
So let me be the first to tell you, you two are inspiring, completely inspiring. It has been a pleasure. Let me make sure that people know how to get in contact with you. Shaleena, can you give them your website, how to follow you, how to get in touch with you?
So my website is www.scnaccountingandtax.com. And then our phone number is 443-495-7515. We also have a Facebook page. I think it's just like at SCN Accounting. And then we have an Instagram page as well, and it's at SCN_accounting_and_tax. So we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn too, and it's just under my name, Shaleena Cottrell. So those
Excellent,
are
excellent. Tony, how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. www.king-king.com. That's a hyphen, king-king.com. For 410-486-4500. And we're right in Pikesville, right off of Reisterstown Road, just inside the Beltway. My email address is tonyking@king-king.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, and it should be just Tony King CPA, and you should be able to find me there.
Excellent. Thank you both. Shaleena, your aunt, you always got to thank God for aunts. Your aunt your aunt Cynthia wanted to tell you about, did an aunt interview and keep up your hustle on. So
okay.
Shout out your aunt Cynthia. She's watching and give me a shout out. Thank you both again for an amazing session of Entrepreneurship Matters. Next week, October 1st at 1:00, we're doing another session. This one is about catering. We have two tasty entrepreneurs. You see how I did that? Tasty.
Tasty.
Shaleena, you don't want to laugh. Tony just smiled. Okay, we have Craig Kerbine of Taste This and Steve Williams of KDW Catering. You do not want to miss these two gentlemen. Please follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I want to thank our partners, the Warnock Foundation, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins, and the Mayor's Office of Small Minority and Women-Owned Business. Again, thank you both. Please feel free to give us feedback, jhconnects@jhu.edu. Thank everyone, and see you next week.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.